If you want to enter relationships, you want to integrate both your masculine and your feminine side. If you're a masculine person, predominantly a man or whatever, and you haven't integrated your feminine side, then there's a part of you that isn't in your relationship. What's up, guys? Me and Mia are back again for a video on masculine and feminine polarities and relationships. So please go down right now, do the arrows with your hands. Boom, boom, boom. Hit that like, subscribe, and let's dive into this one.
We're gonna drop some serious knowledge nuggets on masculine and feminine synergies. What you'll learn about is how everyone has their own dance of masculine and feminine energy within them. And if that triggers you, how does it trigger you? Get curious. Like, why does it trigger you? Like, tell us below even. And hopefully this video will help you understand the real on masculine, feminine synergies and what that means and the importance of it. Oh my gosh, don't die. Oh my goodness.
First, we want to talk about sort of the definition of masculine and feminine briefly. One thing is, we're not talking about men versus women. We're talking about like a disembodied masculine principle. Check out the video here. Energy. An energetic thing.
Look at that.
And the masculine principle is, we're gonna go on this random hike in this random part of this forest that we haven't been. It's the proactive, outgoing force and is grounded, is strong, presents order. It is forward. And Mia, could you comment on feminine opposite?
Oh yes. The feminine, the divine feminine. So let's start with like the divine feminine is like an energy that is flowing, smooth, radiant, like very creative. Like when you kind of get in that flow and you're like, hey, right now I want to play my piano, I want to practice on it. Oh my goodness. And right now I want to dance. I want to get spontaneous. I want to be in flow. I want to achieve flow state. You know, that is a core experience of the feminine. And then there's also the toxic or dark feminine. And this is the shadow side of the feminine. And this is really like a side that is very chaotic, like abstract. But also so beautiful here.
Keep going.
See right there, that was a feminine move. That was like an archetypally feminine move where we just like, Luke led us over here. And that was him being like totally in his masculine, totally on brand. Yep. And me just being like, oh, hey, yeah, cool, that's beautiful. Me just surrendering, letting go, letting him lead. And just being like, oh, yeah, cool, awesome. Like being totally in the present, totally here, totally engaged.
Right. I see the feminine as also like receptive, while the masculine's like the opposite of receptive. Penetrative, is that it? It's like
penetrative, active.
Active, right? So she's the jar and I am the water that fills it, or something, or I am the fish and she's the ocean.
Totally.
Right? Interesting. A question is feminine, is a feminine aspect, and the answer would be the masculine component. Which is interesting. Yeah. So now that said, how do we get deeper into this? Right.
Let me just cap off by saying the toxic or dark shadow feminine is a abstract energy, a very uncontrollable, unpredictable energy. And that's known as the shadow side because for example, like if you know a girl and she's always late, or if you know a guy and he's always late, and actually whether or not man or woman, feminine energy, typically toxic feminine energy is very like just fly by the seat of your pants, like can't control this person, like totally unpredictable in a way that it's like hard to make plans with this person. It's hard to be accountable, difficult to have integrity, difficult to make goals and set goals. So that is an typically overly feminine, like imbalanced kind of characteristic.
Cool. Toxic masculine is like disrespecting the boundaries and containers of others. It's like, I'm gonna go and do my thing and be proactive and forceful, even if it means, you know, at the expense of other people. And the positive side of masculine and feminine is always going to be a win-win. We always want it to be a win-win. Whenever it's a win-lose, it's getting into toxic territory. So I actually believe there is a toxic masculinity. There is like a side to masculinity that's toxic. I don't think that masculinity itself is toxic though. And so there's an important nuance there.
Totally. And no feminine or masculine energy is inherently toxic, which is interesting. When people see it as such, that's when we really get into trouble. I would say like typical stories of toxic masculinity that have been hyped up and sensationalized have been like domestic abuse, violence, conquering,
like what armies might do is like pillaging, raping, like crazy stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's part of the toxic masculine elements of war, the willingness to kill, those all go together.
Yeah.
So now that so that's kind of the general sense of the positive and the negative of the masculine, the positive, the negative of the feminine. And what's important as individuals, and this might be the key thing, let me know if that's right, that, as an individual, especially if you want to enter relationships, you want to integrate both your masculine and your feminine side, because we all have both to some extent. And if you're a masculine person, predominantly a man or whatever, and you haven't integrated your feminine side, then there's a part of you that isn't in your life. There's a part of you that isn't in your relationship. And you're a woman or girl, or just someone with feminine essence primarily, and you haven't integrated your masculine, you're not showing up as your full self. There's parts of you that aren't showing up in your life. And chances are it's not like it's just not there. There's probably some like over-exaggeration or some under-exaggeration of important skills and abilities. So if you show up, what's it like for a feminine woman or just a feminine person to not have their masculine, not be in touch with their masculine?
Yeah, so a feminine energy not be in touch with their masculine. For example, like I have girlfriends that are pretty out of touch with their masculine energy and are frankly pretty afraid of masculine energy in general. They sometimes actually have, I guess, as some would simplify it, like daddy issues. They might have trouble with like male relationships they've had in their past. And also, what they typically exhibit is like they're always late, they can never commit to a plan, they don't have any goals or plans for themselves. In fact, it usually takes a push, like a little bit of hand-holding from a guy for them to even develop goals for their own life. Like, they might be really good at like running or something, love running, but they've never thought to enter a marathon or like monetize a certain habit or goal of them, and they're just kind of, maybe they're doing stuff and they never seem to be able to like have that security. They never seem to be able to lock down that security, and that's where the magic of the masculine comes in, which is like actually having that security, like helping them with that.
Cool. How about let's walk and you tell us about you integrating your masculine with yourself. You mentioned marathon. I know you have a story about that.
Yeah.
That's relevant.
For sure. Yeah. We could tell like a story of like our own journeys with cultivating masculine and feminine energy.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna get real vulnerable, real authentic with you.
Insider scoop here.
Insider scoop.
We don't need no paparazzi. We just put it all out there.
Yeah, like swipe up, get it
Swipe
here.
Up to see my medical records, SIN number.
My SIN. You heard it here first.
My ID number. Anyway, okay. Your story.
Out of the presses.
Integrating your masculine.
Okay. Okay. So I would say, like, for me personally, I identify as a feminine woman, a female. And for me, I would say that when I was growing up, I was very tomboyish because I was raised primarily by my dad because my mother passed away. And so for me, I was constantly, my beacon was to be as masculine as possible, to have thick skin, to implement tough love. And for me, that was like the default way of going through life. And then when I went and I grew up in university and college, I started to cultivate a better relationship with my mother spiritually. And this was aided with psychedelics, actually. So the interesting thing is I was able to start cultivating a healthier relationship with femininity overall. I stopped being jealous of other women constantly. I healed wounds that I had with dressing up nice, with wearing makeup, and with going out with other girlfriends and being girly. And you might think this is superficial, and that totally makes sense actually, because it was a shell of femininity. Now, shells of femininity are really interesting, and David Data talks about them a lot in Dear Lover, which is a great book. Totally should read it. It's on
my book list.
It's a spiritual erotica book for women, primarily. So,
never mind.
No, we're still totally gonna read it. We're still totally gonna read it.
Okay.
And then
we'll see.
Okay, and so basically, the crux of that is that now how I feel is, now that I've nurtured a relationship spiritually that is very healthy with my mother, and a relationship that's very healthy with my dad, who is still living, I feel like my reconception of my childhood and my parents, my role models, my first loves, essentially, has totally transformed the way I relate with other men, with other women, with romantic partners, which actually like have included both men and women. Little drop there. And frankly, also like men and women from different generations and cultures and such. And I now feel like, you know, for me, for example, right now, like I lead my own business. So for me, I imply a lot of masculine energy in my business because I'm the face of my brand. I'm like the one leading everything. So I know that I have to be on point. I love fucking with a good Excel sheet. I love being on top of my accounting and my billings and my contracts and legal, because I know that's what it will take to make the business succeed. And I love it. And the reason why I can do all that is because I'm so in my purpose. I know why I'm here on this earth. I feel so aligned with my path. So lone wolf about that. And where my feminine energy comes to play, literally, is like, you know, taking a bubble bath after a long day of work, like going out and dancing, like dancing on the beach, like, you know, this is where my feminine energy comes into play. And my girlfriends hold like the highest priority in my life in many ways, because they truly have my back like a family. Like, anyway, so that's currently where the balance comes into play. And it's really, really important that I've cultivated that. And I'll share with you why after Luke tells us and myself about his story of masculine and feminine energy. Spot.
Here, come on in the shot.
Yeah.
Come here. Yeah. My journey was an interesting one, to say the least. So I would say growing up, you know, you could say I sort of defaulted to feminine characteristics. I definitely grew up amongst a kind of like an atmosphere of, you could say, skepticism of masculinity. I didn't feel it super strong, necessarily getting like shamed for being proactive, for being encouraged, for putting myself out there, but there was for a political landscape where there's discussions around masculinity. So I know that it's a hot topic, at least. And it's really dear to my heart because I had to grow into my masculinity. I was not a very integrated person, we could say. It's not about being masculine, it's about being integrated, right? And I wasn't in touch with my masculinity like a healthy integrated person would be. And so it basically took years of proactively like challenging myself socially to learn to tap into those characteristics. So things like leading, things like saying what I think, things like, you know, being decisive, things like having an air of certainty. Like I had to practice these. And it's funny that the kind of arena for that with me, here, take a step back. Let's just step on this. See, I'm leading right now. I'm more in touch
and I'm
with
like, okay, I trust you.
So, you know, it changed over time. It was an area of self-development. Hey, we have a dog and a guy. It's an area of self-development around men's work. And there's a specific area of men's work for men's dating where it's about going out, challenging yourself, being social, you know, networking with guys, meeting girls that you might want to date, going on romantic adventures. You know, this might happen in nightclubs, this might happen in different venues, this might happen in grocery stores. And you kind of go out with your friends and you challenge yourself to be social. And so in this arena for self-development, I cultivated those masculine characteristics. I learned how to say, hey, you're cute. I wanted to meet you, right? I learned how to say, you know, I don't feel like going and eating dinner here. I think we should go to that place. I learned to say, hey, I'm actually not available this weekend for our plans, even though I'd love to hang out with you. We're gonna need to delay until next week. You know, I learned to like be a force for myself in the world first, because before what I would do is just kind of default to what other people wanted, to what other people said they should. And it was very much at the effect of the world and my environment and my social circumstances, and not the cause. Mm-hmm. You know, I wasn't living by my own values. I kind of just went with whatever was safe, that people around me would acknowledge as safe. So, you know, like I found myself saying things like, you know, there's like some quote from some guy, Oscar Wilde or some shit. It's like, everything is about sex except sex, which is about power. It's like,
oh yeah, I think maybe
edgy
Mark
quote.
Twain might have said that.
Mark
but
Twain?
yeah.
Whatever. Some edgy guy, edgy modern guy who doesn't understand sexual dynamics or the world.
Edgy quotes for fucked up teens.
Edgy memes for edgy teens. Yeah, it's like you could take the perspective that the world is just a power dynamic, and then you end up with like, you know, a really distorted, weird worldview that doesn't align with most people's experience if you want. But I caught myself saying stuff like that, like posting and commenting on Facebook, because I wasn't in my masculine enough to know what I actually thought. And if I knew what I actually thought, I wasn't in my masculine enough to say it or stand by it, right? And after learning to do that, I became much more grounded. I became much more strong. I became more like a pointed arrow going in my direction. And the key thing is that along the way, I've learned to always make it a win-win. You know, my will and my force and my direction is always for a win-win scenario. I want my life to be better. I want other people's life to be better. It's never a win-lose where I'm winning and they're losing. And before, it was a win-lose where I was losing and other people was winning because I didn't have enough respect or a sense of self-worth and what amounted to masculinity to back myself up. So by becoming more masculine, I became more integrated. It actually helped me be a better person. I could be a better person by being more masculine, right? You know, again, oh, masculinity, oh no, it's bad. Masculine force is like bad. That's like conquering. That's like shaming others. That's like bullying.
It's like Genghis Khan, who we
like
need
Genghis
to
Khan.
we need to pretend never existed. And
Genghis Khan never existed. There's no conquering force within us. No. Instead, like what ended up happening is I integrated that into myself. So I have that drive, that desire to like to take over and to conquer, but it's not about taking over and conquering. Now it's about growing and building and making it a win-win. And I couldn't do it if I didn't have those skills. So that was my journey. It was tough. It took a long time. I had a therapist. I had life coaches. I went to seminars. I read books. I did exercises. I had mentors. You know, it took maybe like 2 to 3 years to really hone it in. And like really intense proactive work in different periods to get to the point where I'm really balanced there. With my feminine aspects, I find now that I'm more confident in my masculine, I can go into my feminine and I know I'm not like compromising myself and making my life a win-lose for myself by being receptive and open to other people. Like I can be a better leader now because I'm actually willing to follow others because I don't have weird resentment around other people leading me or telling me what to do. I'm like, that's cool. I'm always going to respect my boundaries. And if it isn't in alignment with me, then I'm not going to do it, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that way I can actually be more in my feminine, right? Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. Mm-hmm. So why don't we walk a little bit and let's, we want to talk about how these played into our relationship.
Yeah, I would say also too, a really important disclaimer. I want to say for those who don't speak British, is that no, we're not saying that one ratio of masculinity and femininity is like better. Like we're not at all making judgments and saying like 70 masculine, 30 feminine. That's the way to be. Or like 50-50
not
is
75,
the way
bro.
to be.
75 masculine.
Luke and I really don't like we try not to think in terms of shoulds. And this means not to should all over yourself. If you're hearing us, if you feel like, you know, like inflammatory about what we're saying, like,
don't should all over
like
yourself.
This is just our experience and our story and our journeys. And the purpose of sharing this is to really help illuminate just where we come from in the hopes that it might help someone or help a couple or something going through some challenges of like, what works? Like maybe why isn't something working? Well, maybe it's because your masculine and feminine synergies are imbalanced in some way in yourself. And so that is a perfect segue, like Luke was saying, into talking about like the balance of masculinity and femininity within yourself. Because even if you think you're a predominantly feminine being, which I think I am, or predominantly masculine in your energy, which Luke would identify with, you always have that balance within you. Like sometimes my masculine shows up way more than my feminine. It's a dance throughout the day. Like for me, like I was saying, you know, for Monday to Friday, for the most part, I'm at work, I'm in my masculine, I'm happy to be in that space, I'm content, I've accepted that about myself, and I'm totally cool with that. And when I'm with Luke and I'm in my feminine and I'm letting him drive, I'm letting him open the door for me, I'm letting him take us out to the dinner place, I'm just like relaxing and surrendering. I'm like, thank goodness, because I've just had quite the day and I would like to relax and surrender. And I like having both of those energies within me that I can activate and access at any time, because this allows me to show up in the relationship as a whole and complete being already. I'm not looking to Luke to be that masculine presence. I'm not saying, oh, I have no goals of my own, Luke better help me figure them out. I'm like, actually, I do have goals of my own. And I also know how to get playful and spontaneous and know that it's not about me just like being whimsical and playful and feminine all the time. It's like, it's really about making sure and getting in touch with the fact that I have both dancing within me and both show up differently. So sometimes in the morning, it might be 70% masculine energy. In the afternoon, it might be 70% feminine energy. At the end of the day, it might be like, 50-50, and that's just like how it might be.
Now, normally when I'm on my own, like, I've got both. Like, I love massages. Like, I'll take a massage. I love hanging out, chilling out, looking at the view, meditating. Is meditating feminine? I don't know what the...
I think it's actually like gender neutral. I think it like has no gender.
Really?
I don't think anything inherently actually has gender or masculine energy.
Ooh, here's something that we disagree on. Oh shit. I think the pattern of some things is like archetypally masculine, and you could adjust the pattern to be feminine, but it might change the thing from being what. Anyway.
Yeah. That's a Harvard debate.
There's more discussion in masculine, feminine, but let's stick to when it comes to relationship dynamic.
Totally.
Something that David Data teaches, and this is really important if you're in a relationship where maybe you've lost some of the sexual edge or some of the excitement that you maybe had at the start in your relationship. There's a key word that he talks about, which is depolarization. Now, if you've been depolarized in your relationship, you know that when you kind of become like buddies, like friends who talk about your business goals and your plans in your relationship with your sexual partner. And if they're the predominantly feminine person and you're the predominantly masculine person, and you find yourself falling into your feminine more and then falling into their masculine more around you, it could kind of like, instead of it being like you bring out my masculine and they bring out your feminine, it could be that it's like grayed out. It's just gray. It's just gray and boring, and it doesn't have that polarization that brings up that sexual energy, that brings up that attraction. He talks about opposite ends of magnets, opposite ends of positive and negative charges, how they're attractive, how there's dynamic, there's like an arc of energy that flows between them, and that's because there's polarization. And if you depolarize yourself, then that can reduce the sexual dynamic in your relationship. So we have a very good polarization in our relationship, where you have and if this is correct, you have time and space where you are in your masculine, and I respect that, and I have my time and place where I can be in my feminine, and you respect that. I mean, I don't exactly sure sleeping, is that feminine? Vulnerable.
Man, depends what
Resting.
you're doing. It depends what you're doing when you're sleeping.
When I'm sleeping, I'm actually sleeping. I don't know about you. What?
I'm talking.
I'm fighting demons in my dreams.
Yeah, I'm
masculine sleep.
I'm having an epic
sleep.
journey.
Yeah. So, we have space to be both, right? And it comes and goes, and we don't have any weird hang-ups on masculinity or femininity either. I'm happy to go in my feminine. I love it. It's great. Like, it's chill. I can surrender. I can go with the flow. I can be chill. I can let Mia take the lead in certain times. She's, helping me with brainstorm some business stuff that she's an expert in. And I'm willing to say I'm not the like overly masculine guy who can't, take it like directions on the road because he's going to figure it out himself. Like, Mia can give me business advice and help me do exercises to figure out, what I want to do. And I'm willing to follow, right? I'm willing to be the student, not the teacher, in that moment. And because I'm cool with that, and because I've integrated my masculine, we have so much more dynamic to our relationship, right? We have a much healthier way that we can show up when it comes to the like business aspects to our relationship. And we maintain polarization. We maintain our own like time and space to be masculine and feminine ourselves, and it's fucking awesome.
And similarly.
For you?
Luke is like, sometimes Luke will like challenge the fuck out of me on some things, and like I'll be like, yeah, I really love this and I really love that, and you know, there's also this and there's also that, and you're like, oh, have you like tried to change that or anything? And I'm like, oh, never thought about that before, you know? And I go with the ebb and flow of it. Like sometimes when he says that, I start switching into my masculine a little bit, and we start doing this dance. And like, I might be like, oh yeah, I'm having a great day. Like this happened, but then that happened. And you're like, oh, well, have you thought about changing that? And so we're in our masculine, feminine, like predominant dynamic there. But as soon as he asked that, I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about that. Yeah, you know what? Like, let me implement a plan. I'll like start by doing this. I'll start by doing that. You know, then it'll go to this place. And then I'm getting strategic. I'm getting analytical. I'm getting in my masculine in a healthy way. Like, you know, this is me. And then, and then Luke will be like, yeah, like, cool. Like, that's a great idea. And he'll be like supportive of that. And he'll be like, great, like, glad you're thinking about it. And like, maybe he'll keep poking holes in it. And he'll be like, well, have you thought about this? What about this blind spot? And so I feel like there is a respect that is true in our dynamic, in our relationship, which is not to be underestimated. Luke and I also, like, we just like integrate a lot of humor into our relationship, which makes things like really fun. Like,
funny as fuck.
Like we're like regularly like laughing our asses off with each other. So much so that like I feel like sometimes super awkward around people that like are not naturally that way. And yeah. I'm like, but you know what? We're not gonna tone you down. Like, we are us. And also
all gas, no brakes.
All gas, no brakes. Let's go. So and a funny thing with that too is something that Luke has really pointed out that I really admire is that, you know, when we're in a one-on-one relationship dynamic, I'm not speaking to the collective masculine. I'm not speaking to all men in the world. I'm not speaking to, you know, any other man in the room except Luke when I'm talking to him. So I don't think about what would this feminist think? What would this, you know, like pickup artist think?
What would Neil Strauss think?
What would Neil Strauss think? I'm thinking that's a deep cut for the pickup artist.
If you know Neil Strauss. Neil Strauss, if you're watching this,
comment below.
You need more therapy, bro. Anyway.
Anywhom.
Okay, unfair.
That was a fucking dig if I ever heard it.
Oh, and if you're watching this, what's up, bro? Anyway.
Anywhom. Yeah, So Luke really has helped actually illuminate this whole concept, this whole philosophy to me of like, when we're talking to each other, we're not talking to like a group of people. We're not like thinking about an audience in the room that's like somehow auditing our every decision or thing we're saying. We're talking to each other and each other with our own known and unknown collection of experiences and schema and identities. And this is what I'm most mindful of. I'm not thinking about what other men would think. I'm not thinking about what other women would think. I'm thinking about this individual right here in front of me, how my body feels, just us two. So it's like, it's something that I would also say that if you're a couple watching this video, if you're in a relationship, remember that you're not thinking, you don't have to overthink about, you know, what the masculine is like or what the feminine is like. Just like, it's important to be aware of all these energies within you and like how different energies come up, and to respect that dance, to like understand that's happening and to be cool with it, to meditate more, to laugh about things more. And yeah, that would be literally all I'd have to say on that.
Awesome.
Boom, mic drop.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to my TED Talk.
Mic drop. Yeah, and by the way, if I look tense, it's because I've been holding up this thing the whole time.
Yeah, like this bicep is like, yeah.
I can be in my flow, my feminine, you know. I can dance randomly. I'm not those guys who are like, I don't dance. I can't dance. I have no sense of humor.
Fuck that.
Yeah, totally. I think like, you know, it's a personal thing. I love what you're saying about like, you know, you're in a relationship with one person, not the entirety of women. You're in a relationship with one person, not the entirety of men. And to understand that each person is kind of in their own place. And, you know, you probably know if you have a more masculine essence or a more or feminine essence. The thing that you might not be clear on, if it isn't clear to you, is probably because you haven't integrated one of them. Right? You know, before I was like, oh yeah, you know, masculinity is kind of weird. You know, I'm strong in my feminine. Yeah, I'm strong in my feminine. That's great. And I kind of had a weird relationship with my masculine side, and that kind of like, it wasn't until after I integrated it that I'm like, wow, I'm way more functional in the world and can do much better things. So that's what I hope for you guys, that you're able to function at your fucking best in the world, that you bring light and happiness everywhere that you go. Do that again for the thumbnail. And for the thumbnail, let's go. And if you're watching this far, thank you so much. I hope this was interesting and useful. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. We're talking about masculine, feminine stuff, and we're going to
dislike. You can dislike this. It's all good. It's engagement.
I've learned to integrate the haters too. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. This was feminine, masculine dynamics, relationship stuff with me, Luke, and me hyphen Luke, comma, and Mia. And hope you have a good day. We're out here in the beautiful, what is it called?
Backbone Trail.
Backbone Trail.
Topanga. No, where are we?
Backbone Trail.
Of Topanga or
Topanga?
Calabasas?
Here, let's put our hand up. Woo! Here we are. So thank you for watching. And, oh, my elbow's pointy. That's cute as fuck. Having a sense of humor is huge. Okay, maybe another thing. Okay, I'll add this. Final thoughts before we go. There's an element to being in touch with your masculine and feminine. There's also an element to being in touch with your inner child. And so that comes out in the ability to be playful, the ability to be humorous, like we so enjoy, and the ability to be goofy and hoo hoo ha ha, make sounds like that, and ha 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 hee hee hee, and the kind of like having like a childlike innocence to you and how you carry yourself, your humor, your gratitude for things, kind of seeing things, the ability to see things for the first time, just like it's a branch. And just bringing that childlike curiosity, like that's another area to cultivate. That's outside of the framework of masculine and feminine dynamics, and that would be another huge thing that I think we've both done. We've both done inner child work and healed, the wounds and everything that comes with inner child work. So
100%.
Maybe that's another video for another time. There's a little sneak preview there.
Oh.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Favorite dance move?